With the K-pop hour in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side, and joining us as they do every single Thursday in the 9 o'clock hour, the MGoBlog Roundtable crew. We're reflecting upon last week's game, looking ahead to Saturday's contest, where the Wolverines are going to do battle with the Trojans of USC. Gonna see how things play out. If the Wolverines get this one, boy, it really sets the stage for a run to the finish line. Not looking past Washington, but boy, it really sets things up quite nicely if the Wolverines can get this one. Joining us like he does every single week, the man who started it all over at the blog, Brian. How you doing this morning?
I'm well.
Seth Fisher, how are you this morning?
Unlike the Guardians, I'm still alive. And unlike the Yankees, I should say. Happy Yankee Elimination Day to all who celebrate.
Yeah, those Guardians did go down. How are you doing this morning, Craig Ross?
Hey, I'm fine. I know, I have Tiger fans who called the Guardians cockroaches because they're impossible to kill. And it turned out that's not true. And so congratulations to the Tigers. I'm rooting for them. Hope they do well. The only thing I got sort of off the point, it was very short, was a guy sent me a note asking me what we really talked about when we're not recording. And I said, well, K-pop. And that Brian Cook is like one of the K-pop experts in Ann Arbor. I think it's just proven that in the last segment, didn't you? I mean, come on, admit it.
Well, my knowledge is a little dated, but there was a syndicated show before K-pop got really big that I used to watch in college. That for some reason me and my friends called Mind Video Hittin'. I don't know why, but it was girls in bathtubs and very slow ballads that we all hated. And it was a good time, and I was not surprised when K-pop got big. Anyway. We could talk some football now.
This started because my daughter listens to K-pop.
Right, and nobody knew the band name, and I was like, it's probably Blackpink. And
and then Brian knew exactly what I was talking about.
Come
Who's your favorite member of Blackpink, Brian?
I don't know their names.
I have no
idea. Give me some credit.
I have no idea about K-pop. I know Tarek Skubal will not lose to the Seattle Mariners 4 times in a season. No freaking way. Now, let's talk some Michigan Wolverines. Guys, they were coming off the bye against one of the worst pass defenses in the country. They had run it down the throats of the last couple of opponents. There is every reason to believe, I think, for them to believe, man, you know what? We can throw this football. That was their posture. They came out, Brian Cook throwing a flea flicker. They had Andrew Marsh in the starting lineup. They called 15 dropbacks. They thought they were going to be able to throw this football over Wisconsin, at least, and I know they did ultimately. But the fashion in which they thought they were going to throw it, they kind of had to change how they threw the football
on. Did they?
Yeah, they didn't drop back as much. They started putting Bryce on the move.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to go and if you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers from this game, I think they had Michigan getting pressured like 15% of the time, which is a really good number. And it kind of felt worse than when I got back and I charted it. There were a couple of snaps where things didn't look great, but for the most part, I thought they handled those defensive ends pretty well. And, they had some opportunities to take deep shots that, either Bryce Underwood didn't see or just didn't like and wanted something a little safer. Whatever it was, I honestly thought that the protection here was, solid because, these two defensive ends had been ripping it up against, decent competition. So I felt like this was a step forward for Link. And I thought, Sprague had a couple of several issues. But the thing about Sprague is when he gets it right mentally, he's physically dominant. So I think he's learning from these experiences, and I think it's bumpy because he's a redshirt freshman. But if you look at this line, especially with El Hadi out, everybody on this line except Crippen is going to be back next year. Most of them have 2 or even 3 years left. So, we talk about building with Bryce Underwood towards 26 and 27. The offensive line is going to build right with him. So I felt that this was overall a pretty good game because this team came in with the number 12 EPA per rush defense in the country. Now, their raw numbers, they're number 1, whatever. That's not important. What's important is, efficiency, and Michigan put it on them on the ground again. So, and there's hiccups here and there. There were tackles for losses that you don't like, but fundamentally with Justice Haynes, if you get him a crack, it's going to be an explosive. And Michigan is doing a pretty good job of getting him cracks. And one thing I like from Chip Lindsey in this game is that you knew that Wisconsin was going to be sitting on stretch, and they barely ran it until the second half.
They did.
So I was like, I like that kind of stick and move approach where, previous offensive coordinators who ran a bunch of stretch just ran stretch. And they were like, well, this is all we're going to do. And that's not what Lindsey is. And that's not what Lindsey does. And so I thought it was a well-coordinated game from an offensive standpoint. And I thought we did see Bryce make a couple of moves forward in his understanding of defenses. Honestly, my favorite pass of the day was the check down to Marshall, because that's his fourth read. And he's just taking what the defense gives him. That's 8 yards on first down. And he was able to reset in the pocket and find some smaller windows. So I feel like this was an encouraging game for him. He had some hiccups, some inaccuracies on the move. Maybe he missed a guy or two, but I felt, you have Marsh now who looks like he's coming along, and McCulley, I think, is a legit number 1 receiver. So if you get Hogan Hansen back, and if Samaj Morgan can just hold on to the ball, you can see something building there.
Seth?
Yeah. Couple of things I noticed. Number one, they're okay throwing the ball into jump ball situations to a couple of these guys now, which is something that Michigan has never done. There was a chart or not done since Harbaugh got here. There was a chart recently that came out that showed the amount of havoc being caused, right? And Michigan's still kind of middle of the country or just above average as far as allowing pressure from the defensive line. But as far as like defensive backs getting their hands on the ball, Michigan almost never lets a defensive back come near it. When they have thrown an interception, right, it's just like, okay, Bryce, just unleash it and go downfield. There were a few times this game where, the one to Andrew Marsh, where it's just like, you have a better position, I'm going to go and let you get the ball. And they'll do that a few times, and that puts the fear into the other team, I think, in ways that you can use in other directions. The other thing is, I think that he's designing, we wonder why is Michigan kind of like, rumbling a little bit, and then like they're kind of designed to get these big breaks and with Justice Haynes, that's a really good approach, I think, because he can turn, if you get him into the secondary, he can turn that into a touchdown or turn that into an 80-yarder. So like when they have this, I think they got this idea from Saban in the Rose Bowl, where Bredesen's coming as an insert. But he doesn't insert and go and find a linebacker. He goes and hits a defensive line or a defensive lineman from the same side.
I mean, that's something that Harbaugh has run for a long time. That's not something that just came up. So this is, but it is something that you get that big hit on the first drive, and what that is it's a defense that's expecting stretch, and they're getting an insert ISO, and the linebacker runs into the wrong gap so hard that Crippen barely has to block him. And that's what I like as a guy who charts offenses, is when linebackers don't even need to be blocked. When you put a guy in the wrong gap, I mean, Harbaugh was great at this. And it's very encouraging to see Michigan continue with that even after Harbaugh left. And to me, I when you get those little run tweaks, to me, those feel like Sharon Moore things. But what I like about Lindsey is that he is incorporating a lot of screens in this system, and when you have a mobile quarterback, spreading out the box makes it very difficult for the opposition to really do a whole lot in terms of disguise. So it feels like they are putting him in situations, Bryce Underwood is being put in situations where the defense has a limited ability to be tricky, and that is helping his confidence, it's helping his reads, and I'm glad that he is just sort of putting up he's down there somewhere balls on occasion, because Marsh and particularly McCulley are excellent contested catch guys. And the ups that McCulley showed on the fake bubble screen towards the end of the game where he got down to the 1, I mean, you just put it anywhere near this guy, and I think it's a good play. So I feel like they have something there, and teams are going to have to double him, and then that's going to open up some other things. And you have Bredesen, who's excellent at what he does. Haynes and Marshall, I think, are pro backs. Like the choppiness of the offense often comes down to, one, the youth of the quarterback, because sometimes they get stuck in plays that a more veteran guy would probably check out of, and two, the youth of the offensive line. So, particularly in this game, Sprague had a lot of issues, and that led to tackles for loss. And I when they get it right, though, I think they're physically on par with anybody in the country. They're, Guarnera's come in and he's been excellent, just very polished, a guy who does not feel like a redshirt freshman. And there's other guys who do feel like they're young, like Afobe and Sprague to some extent. And so I feel like they're young and they're going to be getting better faster than most other teams in the country. So I feel like this is a good thing to build on. And if you come and look at this USC game, their offense is explosive and they've been doing all these things. Their average strength of defense they face is 131st in the country. So I don't necessarily think that they're going to just, go up and down the field against Michigan. And then if you look at those defensive tackles for USC, I don't think they can hang with this offensive line. I just don't. So I think that Michigan has a pretty good shot at this game.
What, Brian? I mean, I couldn't agree more about Lindsey. I thought his play sequencing was excellent. I thought getting away from stretch early was a great idea, because I'm sure that's what Wisconsin prepared for. I mean, I felt Sprague had his issues in pass pro, but otherwise it wasn't too bad. I think that Underwood missed some open receivers, and there were probably some plays he should have gotten out of. There was the drop by Bredesen, for example. It's either Marshall or Haynes. No one is covering him at all in the flat. He's completely wide open.
But he found an open receiver.
He did find an open receiver.
You have to expect that even if Max Bredesen doesn't get a whole lot of targets, that he's going to catch something that's basically at his face mask. So I didn't have a problem with most of what he did. And you could say that, like, okay, on the flea flicker, he might have Marsh down the middle, or like
he did.
Yeah, but it kind of looks like he might get bracketed. I think he's past those guys. But at the same time, like, I don't have a problem with him putting up a catchable ball for McCulley that ends up with an interference penalty. This is my frustration when Michigan had Nico Collins on the team, right? Like, just put it up, and the defensive back is going to panic a lot of the time, and you're going to get free 15 yards. So I feel like the aggressiveness where they're going after guys who are quote unquote covered when they're not really ever covered is something that I appreciate. And that is a change, as Seth pointed out. That's not something that Michigan has done basically ever since I can count back shoulder throws on one finger, and it was Colston Loveland in the Big Ten championship game against Purdue. And that's all they've done. So, but the structure of the offense, I think, is nice. I like when they threaten laterally. I like the fact that there are RPOs that are effective. They're like the McCulley touchdown was an RPO off a corner blitz, and they need those controls for corner blitzes because they like to have those tight splits for the wide receivers. And Oklahoma really got after them with the corners, and also Nebraska did. So that's one thing I'm going to be looking for against USC is, like, what are they doing to control that approach? Because it's very difficult for a defense to just run when the corner is changing the rules of where the opposition is supposed to go.
One question I've got for you is Link. It didn't seem like there were a lot of problems there this week, or
no.
I thought he probably had a pretty good game.
Well, yeah, and I had a lot of big negatives for him 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But this game he was solid. Like, I don't necessarily think that he was blowing it out of the water, but I didn't see mental errors, and I thought that his pass protection against a couple of guys who I thought were decent were above my expectations. And like, I think it depends on like how forgiving you are, but there's the pass that Samaj almost dropped and then fumbled after Underwood got out of the pocket. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I issued one negative there, but like, I think that other people think that's a much worse event than I think. Because if there's a defensive end who's getting around at 8 or 9 yards and you're attached to him and you're pushing, the thing that's probably going to happen is what actually happened is that the quarterback steps up and now he's out of the pocket, and Bryce Underwood out of the pocket is a problem. So for me, I'm not even sure I would count that as a pressure. Now, Pro Football Focus did, and their grades for the pass protection for the tackles were like 55 and 40 something. I just straight up disagree. I think that this was a step forward for both of them.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think in this game they went in thinking that they were going to be able to pass from the pocket a lot more than they were actually able to. I think that's reflected in way more dropbacks than I recall them calling in other games. I think the numbers, I think we have them down for 15 dropbacks in this game. And that's just not, whether you draw that, whether you say, where Bryce is in his development or their ability to protect it, that's just not what they've been able to do. But between Wisconsin's pass defense and the progression of Bryce in the offense, they thought they were going to be able to do that. And man, they were catching heat. Bryce was having guys in his lap early in this game. And to your point, Brian, what I liked is, Chip is a guy who has shown the ability to adapt. He can take what he's seeing in the moment and come up with something that his guys can execute. The battlefield decisions that are effective. So sprint outs, screens, that sprint draw that wound up hitting, that was really effective. Some things that address what we are seeing in real time. And then other things that we see in every game, his RPOs and run controls, the bubbles, those have been really super effective. Bryce is very comfortable with that part of the game and piecing those together in a coherent way that really, really works. So I just think as a play caller, he can address what's going on right now. And he was able to do that in that game. Now, the question is, are they not as far along in their ability, in their protection as maybe they thought they were? Or is this just a bad game? That's going to be an interesting sort of
This is very interesting to me, Sam, because like my impression of the pass protection and your impression of pass protection are diametrically opposed. Like I thought that Underwood had a lot of time in the pocket, and a lot of what was happening is that he was getting through 3 or 4 progressions before actually throwing the ball. And to me, I didn't think that the tackles were a pass protection issue at all. That's unusual.
Yeah. I thought and I don't think it was just the tackles at the time. I thought there were times where, they were supposed to get help from the guard and didn't necessarily get help from the guard. I thought they had some communication issues that they were going to have to work on in practice this week. And I was encouraged by that. There weren't always like physical things that you can't correct. There were communication things that you can get right, that you can get better at in practice. And I think they will. How much improvement that can you expect over the course of 1 week? It remains to be the question. And how much of what Illinois did do you take? Because Illinois' posture was, we're going to run this football. We're going to run this football as the basis and then play off of that. And
I imagine part of the disconnect here is that it was stunts. And then the interior got beat a little bit by a couple stunts. Now, when we see that, a lot of times it's like, okay, that's hard, right? And I think from a coach's standpoint, my guess is, hey, we worked on this all week. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah, I Brian, I do think that Sam is correct in that Sprague got beat 2 or 3 times badly, and
Well,
and
some of those were on run game stuff. Like
Yeah.
there was one, and there was one pass protection issue that there's a dip inside and there's a stunt, and one, that's a situation where Guarnera has to read that and come off and pick the guy off, and then Justice Haynes is sitting right there looking at like a big guy wearing a white jersey, and he decides to go get the looper, and I'm like, it's like I'm just baking in one baffling Justice Haynes pass protection per game at this point. Now I'll take it because he's averaging like 7 yards a carry, but it's like, oh, not again.
I've seen some signs up from Michigan fans, Haynes for Heisman, and I get that, but shouldn't these signs say Bredesen for Heisman? I mean, Bredesen made some plays in this game on the 44-yard run. I mean, he blocked 2 guys. I mean, and that it was remarkable. I mean, Sprague had a good block there too. So, that guy's good. I mean, he's a really good football player.
Well,
Yeah,
and I was angry with the holding call.
And I think your play caller does a good job of mitigating the pressure on the pressure point. Like, I thought he got to the point where he didn't put as much pressure on the protection anymore. You start to do things that if we have some issues dropping our quarterback back, well, let's just not do that as much anymore. Let's put them on the move. Let's RPO it. Let's do some things that aren't stressing us like I was stressing us at the beginning. Now, is he gonna drop back as much anymore in this game? Will we see as many dropbacks in this contest? Might we see more play action in this game? For instance, I'm curious if that will be the case. I don't know what the posture will be coming off of last week's game versus just improving all over what we saw in the game last week. That might just be the case because I do think that a lot of it was just communication and technique, and it wasn't all on the tackles. Like I said, there were times where they were just, tackles were just supposed to help from the guards and didn't.
Yeah.
And so, I think that can be cleaned up, and I think it will.
USC's defense is going to be a little weird. They're us. They run our system. So, what would you do?
Well,
to Michigan?
they do not have the linemen that they need to have. Like they have some defensive tackles who barely played for them last year when they were playing Bear Alexander, and Bear Alexander was not good. And and they have some transfers who do not have a track record that's encouraging. Like I just don't. They're going to have to commit numbers to the box, or they're going to get run over.
Yeah. I just go. Well, if I interrupt you, Sam, just for I don't want to lose this train. Brian mentioned something about the hold on Bredesen. Was that a hold in your opinion?
Garbage call. Like,
okay, good.
So
I thought it was ridiculously bad call.
I mean, it was like you get those kind of calls where someone bounces outside, and there is an issue because the guy doesn't hold. He doesn't let go quickly enough.
Right.
Bredesen was already in the process of burying this dude when Haynes decided to bounce. And I was just like, I mean, that guy just got his ass kicked, and and they're getting bailed out by flag. Garbage call.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Sam. You were
So I kind of lost my train of thought there. It'll be interesting with USC because they will absolutely get run over. There's no doubt. The question is, will their pass rush play any role in this game whatsoever? Because it plays zero role in that Illinois game, which was one of the most curious aspects of that contest. Because I thought it would absolutely play a huge role in the game, coming off a game where Illinois had given up 7 sacks and it didn't, because as we talked about last week briefly, the Illini ran the ball down their throats, and because they were able to establish that, they totally neutered the USC pass rush and rendered it null and void. So I imagine Michigan will adopt much of the same mindset, incorporate some of the same plays. I thought Illinois bluff zone was a big play. I think Michigan will probably pull that out and employ that in this game. I think we'll see that. So, we'll see if some Illinois game plan bleeds over into Michigan's attack plan this week. And then let's get over. We'll talk defense on the other side here, because that will be much more problematic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With USC. So we'll get into that. We return here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTK online, the Big1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
Yeah.
You guys kept talking so much. I was going to go off. I was going to bring up the RPO, and you guys hit on that one. The only one I wanted to hit that we didn't get to was the because I saw it on our Wisconsin board afterward. The RPO that Samaj dropped right before the half, because that was that they're expecting you to run right there. So calling that, they get the reaction. And if he catches that, it's him one-on-one with a safety. And then I went to the Wisconsin boards, and they're mentioning that safety has been terrible all year at tackling guys in space. So they were like,
he's the D3 transfer.
Yeah.
But I thought he had a couple good moments. Like, he was over the top of that marsh route. There was nothing he could do about the back shoulder. But and then he was the guy who was dropping into that pass on the waggle where he almost got a hand on it. And I thought he looked like a guy who knew what he was doing, but was a D3 transfer for a reason.
Yeah, no, that's their take on him. They call him an Iowa safety, which I think we all understand what that means. I think that there was a bigger drop than we realized at the time, which is interesting for that game, because everything else in that game annoyed me way more at the moment than it really should have, because I was hot and in the sun and waiting through Fox commercials.
The one thing about this game coming up is that, we've played at least consequential defenses. I mean, Oklahoma's very good. I think Wisconsin was at least good against the run.
They got a good line.
Yeah, I give them credit. I give them. I was wrong in thinking that their run defense was good by default. That people didn't run on them because everyone could pass on them. Was kind of my thought process. And no, they're legit. They're legit.
And so, and meanwhile, you look at USC, Georgia Southern, they're awful. Missouri State, awful. MSU defense, awful. Purdue defense, maybe the worst in the Big Ten. I don't know. And the Illinois defense, doesn't look, great either. They may have a good offense, but defensively. So they really haven't been challenged
back on radio in about a minute.
On the defensive side so far, their offense.
One thing I think it's interesting, they're going out and practicing today with Harbaugh. So you'll have Harbaugh there, you have Minter there, you have
really?
Isn't Klink there too? I think Elston's there. Like, the gang's getting back together today, so we might have some ideas.
Matters, but what's my man that was the OC last year? Why do I keep forgetting his name?
Kirk Campbell?
He's with the Chargers.
Well,
he might have some ideas too.
I'm just gonna nope. Yeah,
is there some way for the NCAA to say this is a violation of some sort?
Probably not.
I imagine there is, but
yeah,
Jim Harbaugh is not allowed near a college football team.
Right, exactly. If there's some
I'm
way
sure they're looking. I'm sure they're looking.
Back in 15 seconds, guys. Stand by.
Okay, let me bring this up. That's a great move, by the way, to go out there a day early.
Yeah, it was smart.
And we're coming back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online at thebig1050.com. Before we get back to the MGoBlog Roundtable, I want to show those of you who are in the market for a new vehicle that you should get on board with Brighton Ford, where your next adventure begins. Ready to take the wheel of your dream Ford? Well, at Brighton Ford, it's more than just buying a car. It's stepping into a lifestyle of power, performance, and possibility. Feel the thrill, take it for a spin, and drive it home today. Experience the Brighton Ford difference, where excitement meets excellence. If you're leasing a car already, make the switch seamlessly. Brighton Ford will pick up your current lease and deliver your new Ford right to your doorstep. No hassle, no stress, just pure convenience. From your first test drive to your next oil change, Brighton Ford delivers premium service every step of the way. They don't just want to sell you a car. They want to make owning a Ford from Brighton Ford an unforgettable experience. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD and get on board with Brighton Ford. So, fellas, MGoBlog Roundtable, Brian Cook, Seth Fisher, Craig Ross, the Michigan defense. They will face a much bigger challenge than the one they faced last week, Seth Fisher, sans the first series where Wisconsin went right down the field. Michigan didn't quite know how to handle the unbalanced, and it took them a minute to adjust to that. They were leaky in their zone blitz, of course. And my biggest issue of all, and the thing that I think is their most glaring issue all season long, is fitting gap runs. That is if they cannot fix that, I think it is going to be the thing that hurts them the most in this game. And so as they face US, or first your reflections upon the Wisconsin game, and then sort of how it plays into the matchup with USC.
Yeah, I feel like I'm drill right now because people are saying I'm mad. Don't say on the internet I'm mad. I'm not mad. Like, they were run blitzing, and they did a few things that you're never going to do against USC. You're not going to want to bring both linebackers down the middle against Maeva. He averages 12 yards when he's blitzed. 12 yards of drop back when he's blitzed. That's not the team to do it at. Wisconsin, on the other hand, starting a new quarterback who are running all its power, right? That's who you want to run blitzes against. And yeah, they got nailed a few times, but I think the sequence of events in this game made them feel more annoying than it really was, right? Because if you take a look at the drive chart, it's the same drive chart as every single 2023 game we had, right? Where they have one touchdown drive that's kind of annoying. They have one field goal drive that kills enough time that it doesn't matter. And everything else, they get nothing. Nothing. So when you go back and look at the performance as a whole, it's fine. When you look at the ways that they were beaten, well, they were beaten by a couple things that they could have sequenced better and whatnot. But the only thing that really drove me nuts was the cover zero. And I think everyone saw and even that, I was like, I'm searching for an explanation. And the best explanation I could come up with, which might actually be an explanation, is that he had all defensive linemen in there who hadn't gotten any pass rush wins all game. And then he puts Caleb Anderson back there alone. And he's like, okay, you go get the quarterback or you're going to die. And they did. And then afterwards, the pass rush from those guys, actually Trey Williams had better pass rush. Payne found something more. Etta got upfield. These guys perform better. And it might have just been one of those motivational moments. So this is a weird game to kind of assess everything with. Now, you talk about USC. I thought, as far as fitting up power, I thought that they improved over the course of the game. The biggest issue was just Barham still kind of tries to go around that edge when he gets kicked out instead of just hammering the guy. And that's a new edge, right?
It is a new edge, but it's been an issue all season. And I wonder, is it a confusion thing, or is it a confusion thing for Barham? Or is it a sort of a philosophical, sort of a philosophical disconnect? What do I mean? Because I got to the point where I asked the question, and we kind of talked about this on the show. Because if you go back to the Oklahoma game, there's one sequence where I think they were running a power, and it was Barham in the game, when Barham and I think it's Roller, they both get caught outside on power. And so I asked one of the guys this week, I said, what are your your principles when it comes to fitting these gap runs? Are you guys boxing it or are you spilling it? So are you kicking the ball outside or are you turning it in?
Yeah.
And they said that's where I know you guys know, but I'm to the people who are listening, and they said it depends on the call. It depends on the call. So they're doing both, right? And which is fine if everyone knows what you're doing. If they continue to have confusion, and it was interesting to talk to Will Heininger about this on Monday, and he said if it's me, I would rather just spill everything.
Really?
I would rather spill everything. And talking to even Vance about it, he said, when I was in the pros with Brian Urlacher, for instance, he said that's what we did. We spilled everything. When we had a linebacker who was a runner like that, we spilled everything. So if they get into a situation where if there continues to be confusion, I think that might be a way to simplify. Just do that. Because I think that will wind up being the issue. I think Winks, what I'm seeing that he's trying to do with his philosophy, like he's a pressure guy. We know this, and I'm actually fine with his pressure this year. Last year I wasn't. I said as much. I think he had a front that was going to get there. You don't need the pressure. This year I think he needs the pressure, and I think he's conceding that, hey, he's going to risk giving up first downs to try to get there with that pressure because he doesn't think that teams are going to be able to go on these marches, these 10-play drives. Well, you know what? Good teams will if they can run the football. And that's what happened against Oklahoma. They were able to go on those marches. You remember those methodical drives Oklahoma was able to go on? They were able to churn those out. They were able to run the football consistently. They were able to gash them with those gap runs, and good teams are going to be able to do that unless they can tighten this up. And so if they can fix this part, I think he'll be right. I think you better make this part right, and teams won't be able to put together these consistent sort of 8-10 play long drives consistently like I think they're going to be able to if they can't clean this part up.
So there's a big drop off I've noticed between the starting line and the second line. So when you got Rayshon Benny and Trey Pearson there, you're getting not getting last year's production, but like no one's ever going to get that production. When you got those guys in there, you are getting star production. Okay, and in that case, I don't want us spilling. I want everything to have to go back inside because once you go inside, Pierce or Benny's going to win a block 7 out of 10 times. Now, when you have the backups in, they're just not as effective, right? Etta is still he's young for where he is, for as long as he's been in the program. He's a developing guy. He's still getting stronger. You can see it with him, though. You can see once in a while he just wins a block, and next year or the year after he might be actually really good. The other guys, the seniors, I'm kind of disappointed in. I expected Payne to be who he is. I thought he was going to be a little bit better run defender than he's been. Williams, I was way high on. I think that he's been a real disappointment. They're just guys. And, they'll be in their gap, but they're not going to be in their gap plus 0.5. And that's really, if you're going to play, if you're going to contain, right? If you're not going to play to spill, you're going to put it on those defensive tackles to win some blocks. And I don't really see those guys winning a whole lot of blocks. Kind of, it's annoying a little bit that and maybe this is just a Wisconsin thing and it was hot out and whatnot, so maybe they won't do it as much as it gets cooler, but they were rotating almost equally.
Well,
so
it's not they're rotating equally, is that Cam Brandt is getting more snaps than Derek Moore. And no disrespect to Cam Brandt, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
There's no reason that Derek Moore shouldn't be out there for 2/3 of Michigan snaps. And I know that these offenses haven't been very intimidating, but if they're going up against Jordan Maeva, he's got to be out there, I don't want a defensive end not named Guy or Moore or Barham out there against USC because, Brandt is a guy who's he's an anchor, right? His pass rush is not on the same planet as any of those other guys. and you're going up against one of the best passing offenses in America right now, you just can't afford to have the kind of rotation that you've been having in these previous games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it comes down to. When you see the numbers of how, like, who's on the field and whatnot. Now, to a degree, as soon as the other team sees those guys on the field, they're going to trap them on the field. So I think that was part of what was going on with Wisconsin is Wisconsin doesn't tempo, but they would, they stopped huddling as soon as they had Cam Brandt on the field. So they knew. But yeah, I think it was just the heat or the level of opponent. But your best pass rushers are Barham and Moore. And then there's a drop to Guy, and then there's another huge drop to nobody else can really get a pass rush unless Nate Marshall's on the field, and he didn't play. So
you raised a great point, Seth, that I want to elevate, though, when you talked about the rotation inside, there being a tangible difference once they go deeper into that rotation, because when it was Mason and KG, those guys devoured offensive lines. They destroyed 4 gaps. I mean, it was the linebackers didn't get work. I mean, they were able to roam free. It was like green pastures. They saw no interference. It was like, oh my God, life is good. Now they get work. They get action routinely. So to your point, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have a rotation in there, which it seems like they are, then you need to factor that into your strategy.
Well, and with Barham, I think he's over enthusiastic. Maybe that's the word. I mean, he's upfield too fast, in my opinion, on a lot of plays. The very first play of the game, he beats this guy, overruns the play. Same thing on the touchdown on that drive, although he's held on that play, which I have a question. Will Michigan get a holding call this year?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like our defensive line play is bad.
There were a few in this one. Yeah.
So I think he, maybe he just needs to be a little more restrained, although I don't know if that's a mistake because he's so talented. I don't know.
It's just, guys, Rod Moore. I got to get you talking about Rod Moore.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, can you remember a time when a player returned that was as emotional for you? I don't know. We didn't really get, like, they started doing a chant going. No one could really figure out how to chant his name correctly. By the way, I can't do the chant on the radio because it's got an F word in it. But the Roy Kent version is what the readers want. So Rod Moore, he's there. He's that one. Okay. The defense, he wasn't on the field for the first drive, right? And then he gets on the field, and all of a sudden he's pointing. And they didn't capture this on TV very well, but you could see it when we were out on the field. He's pointing at everybody, and he tells Jair, no, get over there a little bit. Come down a little bit. Okay, Ernest, you go over here. He's directing people. And it reminded me, all of a sudden it clicked in my head, this looks like the 2023 defense with him and Seymour still just kind of pointing everybody and making little adjustments right before the play where you could see what was coming. And then they would kill that thing. And his interception, he set that up for himself. Okay, they don't rotate into a man look until after Wisconsin's checked. They've gotten a look, they've gotten motion, and then they check into something that's supposed to be a zone beater. And then Michigan rolls down to man with 6 seconds before the snap. Jair Hill's one-on-one. They look, they don't see, the quarterback doesn't see what he thought he was seeing, and then he goes to the bailout, right? I saw a rolled down cornerback. You're going to throw, that's your outlet. He throws it, and Rod Moore is already on the hash when he throws it, and is direct, and he's just running under it like a center fielder. He saw that thing the whole way. He knew exactly what he was baiting, and it's like, man, this guy, I know they were probably working him in, but he's got to be on the field every single snap the rest of the season.
There's no substitute.
They're going to be working him. It's going to be gradual, but to your point, he made 3 plays that nobody else in that secondary could have made.
The throwback screen is going to work, but he sees it. Oh, he sees it and makes the play on that. I mean, there's no substitute for intelligence, and he's got it.
Yeah, he's got that Mikey level understanding. I mean, the reverse, he's literally the only guy on defense. Like Brandon Hillman has to take that play, and he is totally out of play.
He's on the other hash. Yeah. So, and that's Hillman. That's how Hillman plays. I don't mind. See, Hillman, you can get more out of Hillman if you have Rod Moore on the field with him, right? Because you got one guy who's just like, I don't care. I'm going to go and kill somebody. And the other guy's fixing it.
That the safeties should play like safeties.
Yeah, well,
instead of not safeties, right? Like,
I know it's
Brandon Hillman is a dangerous safety.
Yeah,
yeah. He was literally Rod was literally the only one not fooled, but it was emotional.
Yeah, but there's another drive that Hillman ended because he came down and hit the running back and turned it into a 4th and 3 versus a 4th and 1, which is probably a go for it at that situation. So,
but you know who's going to be like that is Jane Sanders. I mean, he's the son of a DB. His mom was a college track athlete. He has that doesn't make the same mistake twice kind of mentality. Like they tell him something once and he has it. You know, he's going to be that kind of player. He's a corner, not a safety, but you can kind of see the making.
But yeah, I mean, we were talking preseason. Are we going to have who's going to be the cornerbacks, right? And it was going to be Jair and Zeke, and then who, right? And now they have 3 guys. Like he's filling that role that we thought Shamari Earls might have to move into, and that is such a comfort blanket. I'm so glad Jaden Sanders has come through.
Yep, great stuff, guys. Another great session. Appreciate you as always. Go Tigers!
Go Tigers! I'll even say it. Go Tigers!
Go get him, Scoops.
We will be back next week to break it all down. Appreciate you all as always. We'll see you next time on the next edition of the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 W.